Hey Greyhounds, let's have a look at all the Easter eggs and cool details in the second episode of Season 4, Curiouser and Curiouser. We begin with Ted waking up in Richmond, not in his usual flat, that's apparently not available at the moment, but in the spare room over the Crown and Anchor, in quarters that look bigger than the women's team's locker room. He's also back to having cereal for breakfast, although not quite what he's used to. The morning show on the TV, ITV's This Morning, is the same show as the one Jamie visited when he left the Last Island reality show, although the hosts have since changed. Philip Schofield left following a scandal when he was accused of an improper relationship with a young staffer, while Holly Willoughby now has her own YouTube show, among other endeavours. It's meant to be a Monday in the show, but Dermot O'Leary and Alison Hammond are the show's hosts only on Friday. Plot hole? No. Some things haven't changed. The old fan from the first seasons is still there to call Ted a wanker. In the office, Higgins, whose middle name I'm sure we'll find out by the end of the season, has commissioned a report that I think has a couple of Easter eggs in it. The postcode is the most obvious one. TW27BU refers to Nelson Road in Twickenham, which is the name of the fictional stadium of the team. As for the name of the firm, Knox & Sullivan, bear with me, it may refer to Barbara Knox, a legendary soap opera actress that has played Rita in legendary British soap Coronation Street. I know there's lots of people called Knox, but the character Rita was once married to someone called Sullivan. And guess what his first name was? Ted. Too much? As far as sponsors are concerned, in addition to real companies Nike and high street chain restaurant Nando's, we still have Bunter, the dumb dating app that has somehow survived to 2026, and I believe a new made-up company called Pinter & Sons. They are now on the front of the kit. Maybe we'll hear about them, or maybe it's just a reference to Beard's favorite playwright, Harold Pinter. Ted can't resist a look in his old locker room. We see some familiar names like McAdoo, Jan Mas and Danny, but no Jamie, no Sam and no Colin. We do find out that Jamie has gone to Barcelona later on. I'm sure they will all come up again. There are also some new names. Williamson, number 6, is surely a reference to Arsenal player, a captain of the national English team, and of our hearts, Leah Williamson. Nordman very likely refers to Cara Nordman, a venture capitalist that along with other women co-founded NWSL team Angel City. We visit the inner sanctum and see how Phoebe's incredibly accomplished drawing of boobs, women's breasts, is still hanging on the wall from when her uncle hanged it when he moved in at the end of season 3. You may remember that the black tape he had put on the nipples is reminiscent of the black tape Ted had put on Keely's photo that was taped in Jamie's spot in season 1. Roy also gives him a bit of a scare, just like Keely had at that time. We also glimpse Beard's desk and spot several of the books he was reading in the first seasons, including the fake one, Impermanence. I think there's a couple of new ones there, but we'll have to get a better look when he tidies up. I think we can sort of see this yellow one, which seems to be Happy by Darren Brown, a well-reviewed book on the history of happiness. The one we do end up seeing him read is the novel The Time Traveler's Wife by American writer Audrey Niffenegger, which has also been turned to a film and TV series. I wonder if that means that Jane is a time traveler? We certainly haven't seen the last of her, I expect. Don't forget that Phoebe Walsh, that portrays her, is part of the production team. Ted also stares at the torn and reconstructed belief sign in the locker room. I think that's new to him, as the coaches stuck it back up after he left. It must be pretty sweet for him to see that, actually. We also see some motivational posters with our friends on the walls. Danny's obviously says, "Football is life." Sam says, "Win or lose, do it with dignity." McAdoo's, I think everyone has something to learn, even the best. Ted's quote is from his locker room speech at the end of season 1. And we also have a quote by Nate, but that's too hard to read, we'll have to try again. We also can't see what Roy and Coach Beard say, but we can see Jamie's quote, "Make the extra pass," which was always Ted's advice to Jamie. And then we move on to Alice's motivational post-its. We get one from tennis legend Billie Jean King. She apparently said it to Lindsay Davenport when she was having a hard time at the 2000 Fed Cup when King was coaching her and the rest of the US team. There's a second line to it. Pressure is privilege, champions adjust. The second quote is from an article that Virginia Woolf wrote in 1940, Thoughts on Peace in an Air Ride. Then we get Scottish legend and notable feminist Andy Murray talking about failure in tennis. And if the last one doesn't sound very Shakespearean to you, it's because it's a misquote, with the bard originally writing, and yet words are no deeds in Henry VIII. Coach Chilton certainly likes her post-it notes. Of course, Ted is keen to start the pop culture bonding with Alice, kicking off with recommending the seminal debut of the Beastie Boys' License to Ill, which, as we remember, he claimed in season 1 were his favorite ever concert when he saw them at traveling festival Hordfest in 1995. But that seems to be a false memory since they never toured with Hordfest, but instead did Lollapalooza. Anyway, the album is legendary and indeed has the recommendation to fight for your right to party. In her desperate attempts to confirm that she's a feminist, Rebecca A. orders any book by Bell Hooks, an American philosopher who wrote about race, feminism, and social class. Rebecca ends up reading her book Feminism is for Everybody. B asks her mother about it, which is a terrible idea, but I love seeing Deborah back in the show. C asks Roy about it, also a terrible idea. D says all women are great, but manages to back out of defending convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, the actual wife of Hitler Eva Braun, and fashion icon Cruella de Vil. I don't know why Forrest Gump Beard would go undercover as Gladstone. Is that meant to be the British politician of the 19th century? He's wearing his hat from season 1 and not one of the caps that Jane gave him. That hat was originally a tribute to Jason Sudeikis' buddy Chris Sainz. I also can't accept that the lines exchanged by former boyfriends Ted and Beard are not from a rom-com or something, especially since Chicago's You're the Inspiration is playing on the background. The scene with Roy and Keely at the visitor locker rooms is pure gold. I say, we waited long enough to see Brett Goldstein put to use all the muscles he put on to play Hercules in that post-credit scene in Thor for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm rooting for those kids. The endless Harry Potter play that Roy had to watch with Phoebe is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which in its two-parter version has a running time of about 6 hours. Ted and Keely taking care of the facilities for the team is similar to Ted and Beard fixing the shower pressure in season 1. Okay, so the going away gift that Ted gave Coach Chilton has to be a plaque with her name that says manager, right? Especially since they showed us these on the doors earlier in the episode. You may remember that the first thing we saw in episode 1 was Ted's name tag at the grocery store, and that, following the tradition of the first 3 seasons, we may expect something similar for the ending of season 4. Will it be that present? I hope that both she and Ted and the show stick around for longer. At the end of the episode, Higgins manages to finish the Higgins report, which not only gives low chances of success to the Lady Greyhounds, but also says its failure may impact the men's team as well. I know this is all meant to raise the stakes for everyone, but if I may, in real life, taking for example Arsenal. The turnover of the Arsenal group for the previous year was around £700 million. Out of that, the women's team, an expensive and competitive team, had a turnover of 20 million. The impact to the men's team is peanuts. To put it in perspective, Trinity Rodman, likely the highest paid female player, gets £1.5 million per year. Cristiano Ronaldo gets more than that in half a week. Despite the bad forecast, Higgins reaches out for some wisdom from his mum, which we all remember is also called Leslie, as he's a feminine junior, and reassures Rebecca. Ooh, maybe the R in his middle name stands for Rebecca, and he's a double feminine junior. I also wonder if there is more to the reason why Rebecca is keeping secret the precarious of the situation from Keely. I really enjoyed this episode. It was a great introduction to the new team. We had some lovely callbacks to our old friends and an intriguing new character for Ted to win over. I also liked how they touched upon women's sports issues, the insufficient pay, the lack of understanding of women's physiology, which leads to, among other things, an increased number of ACL injuries, the lack of funding and adequate facilities, dismissing the quality of the game compared to the men's game, and the inevitable discussions of being too feminist or not feminist enough. A former Premier League manager, even one as kooky as Ted, managing a second division women's team would be a great way to show support for the women's game. And before I leave you, let me squeeze out a few more details from the episode. The title of the episode, Curiouser and Curiouser, is from English writer Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, a children's novel written in 1865 that has given us many staple fictional characters and which has inspired multiple interpretations and has had a lasting influence on pop culture. It's also pretty cool that our new assistant coach is called Alice, and I guess this episode is her adventures in Ted Lasso's sorry, that's a terrible line, forget I said that. Or wait, is Ted meant to be Alice? A few details from the pub. They are selling ale for dogs. The pub patron at the end of the bar is wearing a t-shirt that says destined for greatness, but pacing myself, a sentiment I agree with. Guinness drinkers absolutely swear by the fact that a pint of their favorite Irish stout is a full meal. It will provide you 200 calories with maybe a couple of grams of protein and 18 grams of carbs. At the press pool, we see some familiar faces. There's Sarah, Lloyd, Marcus, and Gary. Probably one of the best jokes in the episode is Roy calling someone Paddington Bear before the joke bears out later in the episode when we see the journalist he was talking to looking like Paddington Bear. That's actually Sullivan Bob Brown, a comedian from YouTube channel No Rolls Barred. Paddington is the best movie franchise ever. Go ahead, change my mind. If you are looking for who said you can't go home again, it's American author Thomas Wolfe in his book of the same name that was published in 1940 after his death. Wolfe was considered, along with William Faulkner, one of the most important authors of the Southern Renaissance. And in the last quote of the episode, according to quoteinvestigator.com, Eleanor Roosevelt did say something similar to what Rebecca and the rest of the world claims she said in 1935. Oh, and science has concluded that menstrual synchrony is not a thing. And on that note, that's it from me. Congrats if you stayed until the end. Let me know what I missed or got wrong. If you want even more Ted Lasso videos, why not like or subscribe? As always, thanks for watching.